Hi everyone, my name is Whitney and welcome to my channel Wild Heart Warrior. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about home. This is the second video about this topic. In the first one I talked a little bit about my roots and where I come from and my relationship to that over the years. But today I'm going to talk a little bit more about uh, how I've created or found many different homes in my travels and in my life experience. So before I start, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed to my channel. And if you like what you see, think about subscribing and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. And I would also love to hear any comments, anything about you guys in the comment section. So let's get into it. I started traveling out of the United States when, like, really independently, I guess, by myself after my first semester at college. So I went to Ecuador, to Quito, Ecuador, which is the capital. This was my first time traveling out of the country by myself, and I experienced culture shock big time, but it was short-lived, thankfully. The first 3 days that I was there, I was in a completely new culture. I was living with a host family, so I was in somebody else's home in the strange country by myself. I spoke Spanish more or less, but just from speaking it at school. Like, I really didn't have conversational practice, and it was so difficult to understand people, to express myself. I felt like so out of place, and I really missed home, and I missed family, and I missed my friends, and I missed like the creature comforts. So for 3 days I stayed home mostly, besides my Spanish classes, and I ate like Doritos because they were the most familiar snack I could find, like Doritos and Oreos, and would watch reggaeton music videos on the only channel that came in on the cable at this house. And I cried. I was like, what did I do? Why am I here? Why did I want to come here? What am I doing? It was a good experience because that feeling of being completely thrown out of your comfort zone and into a strange environment where I was completely by myself was super uncomfortable, but I have realized over the years that not to be cliche, is really where the magic happens, and where I find that I grow and learn and connect so much more to the world around me than when I have sort of my comfort zone to lean back on. So it was a really important part of my process. And it only lasted like 3 days. On the fourth day, we went to the Mitad del Mundo, which is like where the equator actually goes. And it was such a cool experience. And I kind of made connections with some people. And I started to really observe the world around me. And it was amazing. It was so cool to see just different ways of doing things. It was just so different and so interesting, and I just wanted to keep exploring and learning more, and it really opened up my eyes to the world. From that point, I switched my major to anthropology because I really wanted to study culture and people and the world and different perspectives and different ways of life. I actually had more opportunities to travel and to study abroad. So I studied abroad in Cuba, which was crazy because it was just another world. If any of you have been to Cuba, you know it's like kind of going back in a time machine, and a different world where there's not so much consumerism and like publicity and advertisements and just consumption and that kind of world that we live in the States. I really began to appreciate more like spending quality time with people, like having really great conversations and talking about important things and telling stories and laughing and dancing and like looking for joy and fun and connection in every moment. And I learned a lot from my experience in Cuba. But when I came back after Cuba, I realized, like, why do I have all this stuff? It was starting to sink in, like, like starting to let go a little bit of kind of material attachment to the things. And every time I would travel, I would go home and like go through my closet and like, why do I need this? I don't want this. And I definitely went through that period of trying to just let go of a lot of my attachment to physical things at home. And I actually experienced something strange, which was when I went back to the States after living in Ecuador, or especially Cuba, I would have like reverse culture shock going home and feeling like out of place at home in my hometown, because I had seen this different ways of life, and what was familiar now seemed a little bit unfamiliar, and the unfamiliar had become more familiar, and it was a really strange thing. Also, just seeing the society and the culture in the United States versus in Cuba was kind of a shock, to go into like a supermarket, and just the quantity and the abundance was just really a shock to me, and it made me really question like what's important to me, but it also made me appreciate like the material things that I did have in my life. Basically, what I realized was, as I felt more distance from my home where I came from, I felt two things. I felt less attached to it, but I also felt like I appreciated it more. So the beauty of my hometown in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and the ways in which I did connect to like the social relationships that I had there, I really started to appreciate the people who had always been in my life, my family. I really appreciated the beauty, the nature, like living in chaotic cities in South America and then going to the peacefulness of the White Mountains. It was just, I really appreciated it, I think, for the first time. So that was a really special way to reconnect to where I came from and see it from sort of like an outside perspective. And sharing that with people that I met in my travels, like, look at these pictures of my hometown, it's amazing. And seeing it from in a different light really helped me to appreciate and connect to home. And that was something that I started to carry with me more and more. Whereas when I was younger, and I hadn't had that experience, I felt like I wanted to get away. And it's one of the reasons that I started traveling. In my travels, I started to meet other people who were traveling and other people who were really drawn to exploring new places and meeting new people and having new experiences. And I started to feel also more connected to myself. So something that I feel when I'm traveling by myself and have no creature comfort to fall back on, or familiarity to fall on, you're just this one being, and I just would feel really connected to myself a lot more and really aware of my environment. Like all of my senses are turned on because I don't have anything to fall back on. Like I can't fall into some comfort where I might be able to kind of be numb to some certain things that happen. I think in routine, or in when we're in our comfort zone, we kind of become a little bit numb to what's going on. So when I'm traveling in an unfamiliar place, it's like I'm completely aware and all of my senses are on, and kind of feeling out where I'm supposed to go and where I'm supposed to stay, and what places I want to see, and the good and the bad. It all feels so much more vivid, I guess, to explain it like that. And you have to depend a lot on your own sense of intuition, to protect yourself and to find like the experiences that you're also excited to do. So I found that has been super important to me, and becoming who I am today is really depending on myself, learning to be independent and self-reliable. Like, okay, I can figure this out. I can do this on my own. And it's been something that's been really important to me. Now I've been living in Colombia for a really long time, and I call this home. And it's interesting to have so many different places that I call home. I was talking to a friend recently about the idea of even temporary sanctuaries, like even if it's a hotel or a place that you're staying temporarily, or even a tent or a campsite, this becomes your home. So wherever we are, the place that we have shelter and we have safety and we can sleep at night, we tend to think of this as a type of home. And I realized how home really is wherever I'm sheltering, wherever I'm being protected. It's like a refuge. And so, really, home can be wherever I am at that moment. And that's why I feel like I've had so many homes, so many different places that I've lived or stayed temporarily. And in the places that I live, I do like to create a sense of home. So I like to put my touch on it. It's really important for me to have decorations. I have things from home. I have artwork that my mom made me. I have plants because plants make me feel really good and happy. I have cloths that I've brought from home. I've brought blankets from home, even if it's just a couple photos or if it's just some kind of detail that puts my own essence or my reminder of my roots or my family or my friends or my past experiences. That makes me feel so much more comfortable and so much more in my space. One way that I did this a lot is when I had my bakery business here in Columbia. So when I did that, I was really inspired by, in my first video, I talked about how my parents had a bed and breakfast, and the sense of hospitality and cooking things that make people feel really comfortable and really happy is really important to me. So I brought physical parts like towels that my mom brought me that she used to use in the bed and breakfast, or even the silverware from the bed and breakfast, and these little details that really felt like I was bringing that past into my present and creating something with it and embodying what I was inspired by in my childhood and creating from that space. And it was really special for me. And I lived a lot in this sense of nostalgia for my past. It became a really big part of my project. And I think still today, like my desire to create community, to gather people together in beautiful spaces, to share good food or just good experiences, good conversation, is something that I'm really inspired by, and that comes from where I come from. So the last thing I want to say about this is that the physical home, maybe I'm not there right now, but I'm also here in my new home. And there's so many different ways to create home spaces, whether it's physically putting your touch on a space or surrounding yourself with relationships and people who make you feel seen and heard and where you feel like you can be yourself and comfortable, then that's home. And I titled this video Where the Heart Is because it really is more about this sense of home that as we grow and learn and experience, we carry not only where we come from with us always in forms of memories and pictures and a sense of nostalgia and also all of our experiences that we've had and all of the different homes where we have rested and had refuge. We carry all of that with us constantly. And so home really is in ourselves, and it's in who we are, how we treat ourselves, how we see the world. And it's something that I carry with me always in my heart. So those are my thoughts on created and internal home spaces. I would really love to hear in the comments what you guys think about this, if you agree, disagree, or if you have other ways of thinking of home. This is something that's always evolving in me, but I wanted to share where I'm at with that now. So thank you for listening. I hope you guys like it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share some ideas in the comments, and I will see you guys next week.